Viola Rules Reacts here, and welcome to another blind commentary. Today I'm going to be reacting to My Little Pony fanfic reading Kiss of the Dark by Brad the Browncoat Brony. This was requested by King Sombra's The Best Pony. He only requested part 1. Do you want me to do the other parts? Because there are 6 parts to this. And the first part is about 51 minutes long, so this video is going to be pretty long, just to let you guys know right off the start. Not that you can't tell because you can see the time at the bottom of the video. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started.
Hey every pony.
Hi,
I'm
Brad.
back again. It kind of took me quite a while with this since my last reading, because I've just a lot of work and
I feel
fic
you.
writing and whatnot. But anyhow, I do have a few announcements regarding all of that. But I'm gonna save that for the end of this reading. So let's get on with it. Okay, today I am going to be reading Kiss of the Dark by Soothing Stone. This was brought to my attention and recommended to me by the Sir Heartstrings. And so yeah, so I'm really glad he pointed this fic out to me. It's really good. It's really good.
That's good.
And again, I was really looking forward to doing this because, again, Sombra's voice is fun to do, and you guys will get to hear it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
But anyhow, as I said last time, I will be dividing this fic into multiple parts.
Yep. 6 parts, like I said before.
You know, it's a multi-chapter fic. I plan on doing 2 or 3 chapters per video.
Wow, and still ended up being 6 parts.
Last video, which will be 4 chapters.
Whoa.
So yeah, this will be divided up into 7 videos. I've got it all mapped out and everything.
Oh, there's 7.
So
I only saw 6,
so,
but
yeah,
I guess I was wrong.
So first 2 chapters today, and this is really going to be fun. So, but anyhow, yeah, let's get going. Can't wait to get going. Kiss of the Dark by Soothing Stone. Prologue. King of Shadows. The Crystal Empire. For a long time it was kept away from the rest of Equestria, hidden within the mountains and caught in the middle of a never-ending winter. No pony could get in or out, and the crystal ponies lived in fear of King Sombra for a large part of their lives. It was a cruel and dark time for the Empire, one that went on for centuries. But this age was different. It was springtime at long last. The sun, no longer hidden by the ceaseless winter storm, shined its light onto the crystals. The crystals reflected the sunlight in a million directions, creating a wonderful spectacle. It had a prince and princess again, 2 who would ensure the Empire would return to its former glory, if it wasn't there already. There was no reason to assume they would fail when they managed to thwart an invasion of Canterlot almost entirely by themselves. They had the skills and heart needed for the job. Yet, the sins of the previous regime remained in place, regardless of what ponies chose to remember, or could remember. Off in the distance, in the vast meadow outside the Empire, Celestia was sitting in her flying chariot, manned by 2 Royal Guard Pegasi. They came from the town of Canterlot early in the morning, with a pressing matter she wanted to settle before everything changed later that day. They slowly descended to the ground below, empty save for the vast spaces of grass and occasional tree. The Pegasi brought their hooves to the surface and rested the wheels on the chariot on solid ground. "Is this the place, your majesty?" the White Guard asked. "Yes, it is."
Wait, meadow, trees, where?
She said with a soft tone.
Is this outside of the Crystal Empire, or am I confused?
Such was the way of Celestia. The stallions pulled the reins off their backs, placing them on the grass. The Blackford Guard went over to the side of the carriage and opened the door for Celestia. Celestia came out and gazed at the meadow around her. It had been years, maybe even centuries, since she had last been there and free of the sting of failure. the failure to protect her very own subjects. But those days were gone. She knew it when she could feel the sunshine on her face. She walked in a specific direction, searching around for something in particular. The guards left the chariot behind and followed her in the meadow. The Empire was off in the distance, right in the middle of peacetime. One could see the ponies in the streets from here, minding the return to normalcy.
Oh, okay.
However,
So in
Celestia
this
came here for a
fanfic,
specific
the
purpose.
snow around
She scouted the
the
valleys
Crystal
and
Empire
hills,
melted
seeing
as well.
whatever she could find.
Interesting take.
Have mercy on me for asking such a question. But why are we here?
Asked the White Guard.
I don't see anything, and we should be leaving soon. Twilight will be waiting for you.
I know, and we'll have the time to make it, Celestia responded, but there's a matter I need to settle before we leave. She kept trotting through the hills, still searching for what she came for. The guards stopped in their tracks, not knowing where she was going. And then she found it. There was no mistaking what it was. Nothing like that could escape her memory when it meant what it did. The princess approached it at the bottom of the valley, bringing her snout to it. It was a horn from long ago, belonging to a
Sombra's
unicorn.
horn.
But it was not like any other unicorn, with its jagged edges and orange color. She recognized it as the horn of King Sombra, the one responsible for all of the Crystal Empire's troubles. He had nearly destroyed the Empire and Celestia's former student with it the last time he was alive, and very few could have compared to his might had Twilight lost the battle. The guards were far off, eating the grass while they waited for her to return. No pony would hear what she had to say, and that was what she needed for such a moment. Hello, Sombra. It has been a long time since we last met. The horn did nothing, almost disappointing her. The last time I saw your face, you were trying to keep the title of King of Shadows to yourself and threatening my rule, along with Luna's. Her throat choked up while she talked. The painful memories came back to the surface. It does not matter anymore. You have been defeated for months now, and the Empire has been restored. Yet I feel the need to talk to you, before my life and many others will change forever. I have faced many enemies in my lifetime. I had to seal away the embodiment of chaos himself. I was forced to banish my dear sister for 1,000 years. Were you aware of that? Did you even know what was going on in my life, when you hid your empire from my hooves? The horn did not respond to her words. She sighed and knew he was listening to her.
Yeah, I was about to say, Sombra probably doesn't care.
And there was a difference between them and you. I always knew Luna could be reformed back to her former state. She needed time to realize how much she meant to me, but came back to the family and the throne. Even Discord was willing to change his ways for good. He saw the value of friendship, of having some pony to look out for him, and he was one of the worst foes of my history. It wasn't enough to banish him, but he needed to be cast into stone. Do you know what the difference is between them and you? She was silent for some time, letting it sink in. They were willing to change their ways, and you never even considered it. At least I know Chrysalis can't be any different. She needs to feed on love to survive. But you kept doing what you did because you enjoyed it. And that's why I hope to never face an enemy like you again. Equestria would be ruined forever if you ever served as its king. The guards ran to her out of left field, panicked and worried.
Princess Celestia, we only have 2 hours left, and it's a long way to Canterlot from here.
Celestia nodded. Let's go.
Wait, why the time constraint?
As she rose to her hooves and walked away, leaving the horn of Sombra behind, the guards ran to the carriage and moved the reins onto their backs again. The princess was in no hurry, and she glanced behind her shoulder while she returned to her chariot. The horn remained in place, though she found herself almost wishing it would react in some fashion. But she did not think too much of it. In her mind, Sombra was gone for good, and that made her heart a little lighter. She returned to the carriage's seat and motioned for the guards to take off. They flapped their wings and brought the chariot off the ground. The meadow was left behind in their wake as they took off into the sky. The horn kept her attention while they made their way to Canterlot. It was merely a speck in her vision in no time at all, but she could still see its orange glow. All of it was nonsense to her. All the fears
For some
she
reason
had
I
about
thought
Sombra when
Sombra's
she woke
horn
up
tip
that
was
morning,
red,
feeling
not
like that
orange.
chapter of her life wasn't over yet. It wasn't long until she could make out her own castle in the depths of Canterlot. A crowd would soon fill up the courtyard, and for good reason. Today a new princess would be crowned within Celestia's halls. Every pony would want to see such a landmark occasion, for it did not happen often. And she had taken care of the one thing that was on her mind for months. At least, that's what she thought had happened. The birds whistled in the trees nearby. Butterflies were flying about, resting on any flowers they could find. Everything was basked in sunlight, where the plants would gain the energy they needed to bloom. A few squirrels were scurried about, looking for acorns. The Empire was looking over the meadow, almost like a guardian in its stature. It was not supposed to be like this. The horn glowed its hot orange color, beaming with the new sense of life.
These animals, they should be hiding from the winter. My winter. Who authorized this?
It was shaking with a force beyond its own.
Nice
and a
somber
voice cried from
voice.
within.
I like it.
One squirrel saw the horn moving violently and touched it, believing it was a strange acorn. But the horn cried out again with a deep, unnerving voice. The squirrel dropped the horn and ran as fast as it could.
So, Celestia so foolishly believes I would not return. You want to know the difference between me and your previous enemies. They were weak and easier to conform to your idea of good. You're scared of me. I could see it in the way you spoke. You waited until I was dead to even consider coming into my presence.
The shadowy mist emerged all around the valley in the blink of an eye. The meadow's creatures ran away from it, knowing this was unnatural. One by one, the forms of mist were absorbed into the horn. Within time, a blob of dark magic formed around it, taking a new shape. It created the outline of a stallion, towering in height over most ponies. The horn was put where the stallion's forehead would soon form. He cried out in agony as he finally felt the effects of the explosion that marked his defeat. But he was stronger than this. He pushed through the pain. More and more of him came back to form. His back was restored, along with his hooves. His mane, blacker than night itself. Purple trails of mist emerged from his eyes, like they were always there. He had fangs for teeth, prepared to use them to devour his enemies. His outfit was the next thing to come back. The crown of shadows returned to rest on its head, and steel armor formed around his face, hooves, and neck. The red cape, the one that would befit a true king, emerged out of hiding at long last. It covered his entire back and cutie mark. With everything back to normal, he opened his eyes to see his new surroundings. He could hear but not see when he was limited to being a horn, making his experience much like Discord's time as a statue. What he saw enraged him to his very core. The place he had cursed with eternal winter, the meadow of Sombra's former empire, was thawed out and full of sunlight. He could see everything as far as his vision would allow, and he could not stand to see the meadow as alive as it was. He had gone out of his way to curse it, and now this was what greeted him? But it was nothing compared to what he saw for himself when he turned around. There it was, the Crystal Empire. His empire! But not like he had wanted it to be. Not only was the crystal heart restored to its rightful position, but he could see ponies inside. And they were frolicking, enjoying themselves, doing everything that would tick them
Sombra's
off.
not going to be happy about that.
That purple unicorn and her dragon had defeated him after all. The unicorn's name was Twilight Sparkle, and despite not having the scope of power the princess did, that mare had managed to do what Celestia could only dream of. It enraged him to his very core. How could any pony defeat the King of Shadows? He stomped his hoof on the ground and roared at the top of his lungs.
Whoa.
Sombra had returned,
My ears.
and he wanted to make sure every pony knew this fact. But first, he had to take care of one important detail. He could gather from the guard's chit-chat that a very important event was occurring in Canterlot today, and he remembered where the ancient city was from his colthood. It was time to do something about this challenge to his rule, and Celestia would come to regret everything she had done to him, through her direct actions and through her student. She transformed from his physical form to a small streak of shadowy mist. The mist moved away from the meadow and took off for Canterlot through the air. There was no reason for him to delay. There were more important things to take care of before he reclaimed his throne, starting with the very source of his problems. After some time in Equestria's skies, roughly an hour and a half, he found the castle of Canterlot. It was different from the last time he'd seen it, but it matched the previous castle's sense of majesty and glamour, if it didn't surpass it. He could hear the ponies inside the town, bustling with anticipation over the big day. Therefore, he made his mist form small and hard to notice, so that he would not be seen and possibly even captured if he wasn't careful. The king hovered above the streets and discovered that very few ponies were here at all. Those he did catch were running straight to the castle, acting as if they were going to miss something huge if they waited anymore. And so he approached the castle to see this event himself, hazily drifting through the rooftops. When he saw the castle up close and personal, he knew this building was up to something. Many guards were standing watch at the balconies and courtyard, making sure the crowd would be civil. Speaking of a crowd, there were a huge number of ponies, in the thousands or even tens of thousands in number, gathering all together in the courtyard. The only times he saw a bigger audience for something were in the middle of war. He noticed that they were all watching a balcony high above their heads. Something was transpiring there, and he had to see it before he could plan out his next move. What was going on here? Did Celestia talk to him in that meadow because she was going to step down? At least there wouldn't be too big of a fuss if she died after that. A former princess found dead wouldn't create half the fuss of finding one still on the throne. Then again, there could be a wedding happening here. They didn't happen that often, royal weddings and all, but they were huge events when they happened every now and then. And then, he saw some pony walk out to the balcony. As soon as she came out for the crowd to see, they exploded in applause from the sight. Sombra couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was just so unusual that it took a few minutes to sink into his head. There she was, Twilight Sparkle.
Oh, Twilight.
One of the few ponies responsible for his defeat, standing out for all of Equestria to see her, not as a unicorn, but as the newest princess of the land. Her crown said that to anyone who would see it, and even more impressive, she had wings to sport. Sombra was aghast at this. Not only was his newest foe the newest princess of Equestria, but she was an alicorn now? Alicorns were stronger flyers than Pegasi, and their grasp of magic surpassed that of any unicorn, even Starswirl the Bearded. Twilight was already quite gifted in her grasp of magic, and now it would be even more powerful. If he was in his physical form, his jaw would have dropped to the floor. There was no use in him fighting. He knew that when Celestia and Luna joined her in that balcony, in silly little outfits to demonstrate that they were all leaders of Equestria now. And so he drifted away from Canterlot to get away from it all. Where he was going, he did not know. He just needed some time to think about everything, and to dwell on the path of victory he would have to take now. The ponies celebrated the ascension of Twilight Sparkle throughout the day, all while Sombra whisked himself away into the plains of Equestria, finding some place to call his own. How long he had been wandering around the vast plains and forests of Celestia's kingdom, he did not know for sure. It didn't matter. His empire was gone, taken from a princess apparently named Cadence. Celestia was as strong as ever, and her new ally Twilight Sparkle would grow to match her might in a short time. Miles of land washed over his face while he tried to find a place to rest his head. It might take him all day to find a place for this, but he would find it sooner or later. After a whole week of wandering around aimlessly, he found the location he was looking for. It was in the northern parts of Equestria, where very few ponies lived. The air was bitterly cold and snow covered the area in white sheets. In between frequent mountains, there were low valleys to mark the places around him. He heard legends of dragons dwelling around these mountains, but he knew from experience that was a lie. Dragons thrived on warm areas, not where winter lasted for 365 days of the year. No pony would dare to live in such a hostile environment. Right. Although Sombra wasn't affected by it, the temperature would have caused frostbite to any normal pony within an hour, and those that it didn't would need plenty of protection to survive. It was just right for him. There was one valley that stood out to him. It was flat and big in scope, surrounded on every side by a mountain. It could serve many purposes to him, but there was only one he wanted to do. It had been a while since he had created anything through his magic. There was no need for it when he had an entire empire to himself, but it was out of his reach now, and he had to call upon the creation spell for the first time in who knows how long. In the week he had roamed around Equestria, he had just gained the strength to pull off something like this again. He only hoped it worked as well as it used to. And surely enough, it did. When he was finished with his work, the valley was a completely different place. In fact, if one stopped by in the time before he arrived and came back after he was finished, they would not recognize it as the same land. Sombra erected a massive castle for him to reside in, one that rivaled Celestia's in sheer size. It was black as his mane. Some spots were red to stand out better. Flags of his face flapped through the winter winds, and many crystals were embedded into the stone itself. The main feature of the castle
Unless
was
I'm
a horde of
remembering
towers,
wrong, wasn't
spiraling to the
Sombra's
sky
mane
as if they were trying to grab
red?
something there. The castle was so huge that it would take a long time to circle around it, and it felt like home to Sombra already. It was where he could come to clear his thoughts and decide his tactics with all the time in the world.
I might be wrong.
And
I
most
don't remember.
importantly, it was his and his alone. Any worthwhile king had a castle to his credit, and Sombra was certainly proud of his creation. But it was not for him to reside alone. It needed a unit of guards to look after the castle, when Semponi eventually stumbled upon it. It was bound to happen sooner or later, and he would need to prepare for the future to stand a chance. And so he turned away from his home and arrived at the bare ground next to it. His horn beamed with energy and cackled with electricity. It grew more intense with time, until he released the spell into the area. It shot lightning strikes in several spots around him. He took a few breaths after he was finished. The spell required much strength to cast properly, but he knew it was working when he witnessed many hooves digging their way out of the ground.
Oh,
Whoever they were struggling to get out of there,
summoned
smashing
zombie
their way out
guards?
towards freedom. The hooves were pitch black, and clad in armor like those of royal guards. Sombra watched as he saw his own legion of guards emerge out into existence, Pegasi and Unicorn alike. Their manes were gray as well, an introversion of his color scheme. They were ready to go to war when they emerged, but they stopped when they saw the King of Shadows in their presence. They bowed to King Sombra in unison, showing him the honor he deserved.
"Welcome, my guards,"
he said with a voice that would send shivers down any pony's spine.
"It has been some time since I've had guards that I can call my own, but I do not intend to lose them again."
They rose up to their hooves and awaited their first command. There was no soul in any one of them, as they were not truly alive. They existed only to serve him.
"Now then,
Okay, so this is an interesting development.
of my castle, and keep your eyes on every nook and cranny of it. If there is an intruder present, you will capture them for me to handle. If there is an army on our doorstep, you will kill every last one of them. You are members of my own army, and you will not allow any pony to take over King Sombra's castle."
The guards again bowed to him.
"It will be done, King Sombra,"
they said with a singular voice.
"Good. Now let us move into our new home."
By the early evening hours, it was truly Sombra's castle. The halls were dark, menacing, and full of crystals of his creation. Banners of his likeness were everywhere, and the guards were so large in number, there would be one to see no matter where you were. The throne room was no different. The hall went on for a long while, with a red carpet leading up to it. The throne itself was like any other throne, majestic and awe-inspiring, with a plush red pillow for the seat. That was where Sombra rested his flank, looking out to the rest of the castle. He was very satisfied with his efforts, and he turned to one of the two guards presiding over the room.
"Have they made a full sweep of the premises?"
he inquired.
"Yes, my king,"
The guard replied.
"It's all clear in every area."
"Good. Stay
The guards' voices make me think of the changelings before they were reformed.
And deep down he knew it was true. Judging by that little heartfelt speech Celestia gave him a week ago, she would seek to finish him the moment she found out about his resurrection. And why not? She had every reason to fear him. He had learned from his mistakes after all, and he had an army to back his efforts now. But then again, he had to do things differently than last time.
"Guards, I require some time alone for thinking."
The guards bowed again, and departed from the throne room out of the side rooms. There was nobody there except for the King of Shadows himself. Even though he would have an army in no time, a flat-out assault would not work the way it did before. After all, He had done just that when he went out and tried to keep the Crystal Empire for himself a few months ago. He lost by the slightest margin of victory possible, and things were more dire than ever before for him, despite his new resources. Why? The Crystal Empire was restored, and Cadence would put up a better fight than she did before. And not only did Celestia stand as defiant as ever to his ambitions, but now Twilight Sparkle was an alicorn, and stronger than ever. Wait a minute. Twilight Sparkle.
Hmm?
She was the one who played the biggest role in his defeat. Yes, the dragon by the name of Spike was arguably the one who defeated him by his own hands, and that was why he had his own glass window now. But would he have gotten so far without the help of that little filly? On top of that, he gathered how important this pony really was. If Celestia was comfortable transforming that mare into an alicorn and a princess, that spoke wonders about her ability. He grinned to himself at the new revelation. Twilight Sparkle was the key to taking over Equestria this time. But deep down, he knew that Twilight would never go down without a fight. She would likely do some serious damage to him before he killed her, and a fight involving Twilight would gather too much attention.
So you're going to try
If Celestia
to
heard about such news,
turn her
she
to
would
the dark
hunt him
side, I
down
guess.
until he really was dead for good. Then what? He paused. An attack on a valuable ally would be disastrous. But then again,
Music surprised me.
what if he did something else entirely concerning her? Even then, he knew how his evil plan would look to an outsider. How could it not? But the more and more he thought about it, the more and more it looked like a brilliant plan. It would take a lot of time to prepare and execute, but if he pulled it off right, the edge in the war for kingdoms would be on his side forever. He laughed to himself and began to make his mental preparations. When he made the castle, he also had his own library full of books that he had stored up within his magic. It was possible to do so if you knew the right spell, and of course, he knew all about it. And there was one book in particular that he was going to need for such a task. When he went to the library and flipped through those pages, he laughed even harder at the thought. This was going to be easier than he imagined, and he had some lofty ambitions. The title of the book was About the Secrets of Dark Magic by Starswirl the Bearded.
Oh. Yeah, that would work on Twilight.
Last Day of Light. The first week of Twilight Sparkle's life as princess was one big blur to her. It was rough already to adjust having wings of all things, and not having to cast anything to sit on a cloud like she used to, but that wouldn't be the only change she would have to adjust to. As per Celestia's request, she spent a week at the castle of Canterlot, soaking up all the knowledge of her new duties that she could from her teacher in that lifespan. As she found out the hard way, the new role she would fill was a bit overwhelming, yet exciting at the same time. While she stayed in Celestia's home for the time being, it was so surreal to walk the halls and have royal guards salute her presence while she passed them by. She was used to them knowing who she was, since her brother was the captain of the guards and she was Celestia's protege, but it was like having an old friend treat you like a king out of the blue. You don't have to visit Canterlot very often, no matter what you choose to do, but it is still vital that you make the occasional
Is this
trip
song
to council
copyrighted?
meetings such as these, Celestia explained
Guess it
while
doesn't
they were
matter
on the
now.
study foyer. Twilight pawed at the old telescope by the window, the same one she used all the time while under Celestia's wing. Twilight, were you listening to what I was saying? What? She swung her head back to Celestia. Oh, yes, you were mentioning when I needed to come here. I'm listening. It's just so much to take in. I am aware of that. Cadence was the same way when she was a princess for the first time. That is why she only gradually filled into her duties, not all at once. It is still important to know about these things ahead of time, even with that in mind. Now, about the topic of war. The entire day was like that, going over what a princess of Equestria was expected to do. Of course, Twilight was up to the task, but this was the first sign that her life was never going to be the same anymore. At least it would stay the same in the places
I
it
wouldn't
mattered
say
most.
first time.
After a week of lectures was over,
Moving
the
to
two
Ponyville
princesses
was
were
kind
near
of a
the gates of
drastic change,
Canterlot,
I would think.
with a chariot ready to take Twilight back to Ponyville. All she had to do was go inside and give the signal, and she would be back home. Are you sure you want to go back to Ponyville right now? You haven't even decided on having a castle or anything similar to that, Celestia brought up. I know. I just want some time to think about it. You're not mad at me, right? Twilight asked. Not at all. No matter what you choose to do, I respect your decision. After all, Cadence was once a full sitter while she was a princess. Twilight laughed. The best full sitter. I'll send you a letter when I'm ready to talk about it. And thanks for everything you've taught me. This could be a lot of fun. Celestia nodded and waved to her former student while she climbed up into her chariot, and the guards flew her away to her home. It felt like a long time since Twilight had last seen Ponyville with her eyes. Granted, it was nice being back in her first home of Canterlot and seeing her parents again for an
About to
extended
ask
time,
why doesn't
but
Twilight
she was
just
eager
fly
to
back to
return to the
Ponyville,
small
but
town,
she
especially
couldn't use
since
her
a
wings
certain
very
scaly
well at
friend had to
first.
stay behind while she was busy with her duties. No matter what she was expecting from her homecoming, it was blown away the moment she saw what was waiting for her down below. As the chariot approached the town of Ponyville, she could make out that a huge collection of ponies was waiting at the spot they were expecting her to land. It had to be the entire town for Pony's sake, and they clamored when they all saw she was getting close. And sure enough, Pinkie Pie was the one in the front, pointing her out.
Look, every pony! Twilight's almost here! Now when she's here, I want you all to give her a big welcome, because she's a princess and all, and it's cool that we have a princess that lives here and that's also a really good friend!
That seemed to encourage the whole audience, and the Pegasi moved ahead of time and hovered a big banner for Twilight to read. Welcome home, Princess Twilight. How typical of Pinkie, she thought. It was nice to know Pinkie still had that personal touch to her.
Princess, are you sure we should touch down there?
The guard asked.
It looks too crowded to me.
It will be fine. I know these ponies by heart. They won't do anything to us. Try to land us near the library.
The guards brought the chariot closer to the library while they brought the wheels down to the ground. There was nothing better to Twilight than to see her familiar treehouse come into view. She even saw Spike look out the window to see what the commotion was about. As soon as he saw her touch down, he appeared excited and raced down the stairs as fast as he could. The ponies followed her every movement closely, and they only cheered louder when the chariot landed on solid ground. Before she had even gotten out, the audience was already applauding her. While Twilight hopped out of the chariot, Spike opened the front door of the house and ran right to her. He stopped in the middle of his tracks, adjusting to the fact that his closest friend now had wings, a crown, a neckplate, golden sandals, and 2 guards following her every move.
Wow, it's really you, Twilight,
he said, awestruck from seeing her like this.
Nice
Twilight
Spike
opened her mouth
voice.
to talk, but the crowd was practically bursting at the seams to hear anything from her. It was so loud that she couldn't even hear herself speak.
One moment, Spike. I want to talk to you. I really do. Give me a moment to take care of these ponies first. They've been waiting a long time to see me.
She turned around to meet the audience face to face. They grew excited when she came forward, knowing that she would finally address them for the first time. Her guard stood by her side, giving the moment a hint of formality.
Hello there, Ponyville. Wow, it's only been a week, but I feel like I've been gone for an entire month. It's good to see you all again. I've missed you so much. I know things are going to change soon around here, now that you have a princess living here, and I'll address that in time. But I would like to have a few moments to myself for now, if that's okay with you.
The ponies were upset to hear this, and they groaned in disappointment. But it wasn't for long. Being a princess was tough work after all, and they understood that. But one pony was complaining louder than the rest.
Oh no.
Aww! And I had the whole Welcome to Ponyville Princess Twilight party planned for today. We were going to play Pin the Tail on the Alicorn and have so many cakes in a row, and then we were going to see if you or Rainbow Dash was faster, even if she says she's the fastest in Equestria,
said Pinkie Pie.
I heard that.
Rainbow Dash shouted back. Twilight laughed again.
Thanks for being so thoughtful of me. Maybe we can do it sometime soon. Thank you all for your consideration, and I will see you shortly.
She bowed before them, and they stomped their hooves on the ground in applause. It made her steps a little lighter as she went for the shelter of her treehouse.
Stay at the doorpost and let me know if I have any visitors. If it's one of the elements, go ahead and let them in,
she commanded to the guards. They saluted her while she came inside. Spike stood inside, still waiting for her to come in, and shut the door behind her. Waves of nostalgia hit Twilight when she got to look at the familiar shelves and books she called hers. She brought herself to one of the shelves, and pulled out one book in particular. Everything you wanted to know about sleepovers but were afraid to ask. What good memories she had, just from these pages alone. Meanwhile, Spike was still soaking it in, the thought that Twilight was a princess now. He kept staring at her crown, the one that once signaled her spot as the leader of the Elements of Harmony, now meaning something else entirely.
Twilight Sparkle? Is that really you?
He blinked his eyes, wondering if he was imagining this.
Oh, Spike, I missed you so much.
She put the book away and hugged Spike tight with her front legs. It was such a welcoming sight to see him again.
I missed you too,
he said as he pulled away.
but this is amazing. I heard all about your wings and even saw them before you went away for the coronation, but I didn't think you'd actually look like Celestia too. How was the coronation?
It was wonderful. I feel bad that you
Yeah,
had
that's
to stay
right.
behind to
Spike
watch
wasn't there.
Owlicious.
It's fine. Who else is gonna keep an eye on him?
Almost as soon as he said those words, the owl emerged out of hiding from his cage and flew right at Twilight. He perched his claws on Twilight's back and pecked at her neck softly with his beak.
I missed you too.
She laughed. He was tickling all around her fur, and she shuddered after being pecked so much. After a while he grew tired of it, and flew to the study desk, perching his claws on the end.
I think he missed you too,
Spike said.
He was looking at the front door for the last few days, and he was waiting for you to come in, I think.
I can believe that. He did seem happy to see me.
After a few seconds, she realized she was exhausted from the trip. She trotted up the steps to her bed and sat on top of the blankets. She took off her crown, neckplate, and sandals and placed them neatly by her side. It felt so good for her bare hooves to touch something so cuddly. Spike followed her, and sat down on the side of the bed with the princess.
So what happens next?
He asked.
That's why I went back to Ponyville, actually, Twilight answered. I don't really know what to do. Every princess has her castle and all, but I don't know if I want one right now. That's something I could put away for a while, but I wanted to come back and think about it in private. Do you think that sounds terrible?
Why would it sound terrible? It sounds like something any pony in your position would do. But I'm still your #1 assistant, right?
Yes, you're still my #1 assistant.
Spike grinned, and everything in his world was right again.
So I'm assuming you want some time alone?
Yeah, that sounds nice right now.
The dragon nodded and went down to the main floor, going back to reading one of the older Darren Dune novels he was in the middle of. Owlicious saw his chance to take a nap and closed his eyes to sleep. Twilight smiled to herself and knew that she had some reins on her new duties after all. It wouldn't be like this all the time, but at least she wasn't drowning in her new customs either. It was in the late morning hours by then, and it wouldn't be long until the guards asked her what she would like for lunch, given that's what they did for Celestia all the time. She stretched out her limbs and began to dwell on some important decisions she would have to make. The idea of a castle was appealing, no matter what she would say, but she already knew she wanted to stay in Ponyville with her friends, and a castle in the middle of a purposefully small town would stick out like a sore thumb. So what should she do instead? Truth be told, she didn't know, and she realized that she didn't have a good answer for the question she was faced with. She had to think of something to occupy her time while she figured it out, and there was only one thing that could fill the need. A
Reading?
good old-fashioned book. The alicorn used her magical grip to grab a book on a shelf, and drew it over to her bed. She placed it in between herself and the pillow and looked over the cover. The title was older than most of her catalog, and the style matched its age. A thin layer of dust covered its bounds, and the cover itself was thick and red. It had a design for a flame, and on it was written, How to Cast Fire Magic for Beginners, by Star Swirl the Bearded. Granted, she knew the book from the front cover to the back, but it was fun to read time and time again. Something written from one of her favorite mages, rich in ideas and technique.
That would be interesting
Of course
to
she was
see
gonna
her
love
use
it.
fire magic in the
She
show,
pushed
to
the
be
front cover
honest.
open, and it sent dust everywhere. After a few breaths of air, it was clean of dust and she began to read.
Does her
Before
lighting
I
the
begin
torch
to
at the
write on
Equestria
my
Games
new
count?
discoveries, it is imperative to note that fire magic is not something to be trifled with. It can burn down entire homes or palaces, so I strongly recommend practicing such an act outdoors in a non-dry environment whenever possible. In addition, first-timers should know that it is very possible that their horn could catch fire, so I would recommend keeping a pail of water at all times for the first few attempts.
I'm
After
guessing
30
that
minutes,
happened
she got
to
the
him.
good parts.
Like any elemental magic field, one must consistently envision it in order to use its magical counterpart. Think about the properties of fire. It will not be all that is required to cast it, but it will be a good foundation for everything else. Focus all of your energy to the spell, and then you should feel a spark of some sort on your horn. That is when you release the spell. If you wait too long for this moment, the horn will catch fire. Hours of preparation have proved this to be the case time and again.
The words of wisdom seemed to be exactly what she needed. She felt relaxed, clear-headed, and was able to think straight without the pressure thinking for her. It didn't help her figure out anything at all, but it was a step in the right direction. Her stomach rumbled from the lack of food, and at any moment the guards would come in and ask if they should hire a chef for her. In the end, a simple sandwich made by a dragon would do. She climbed down the bed and was about to ask Spike what they had for sandwiches, when out of nowhere her horn started to glow. Spike was busy sweeping the floor with his broom, and stopped in the middle of his work when he saw it too. It glowed with a white light, and she didn't know if she should be scared or excited from it. The horn beamed a little brighter with some sort of magic. Spike had to cover his eyes from the light. It was almost as bright as the sun. And it stopped as soon as it started. After all of that, there was a letter in the middle of the room. It was rolled up neatly and sealed with a generic black seal. Neither Twilight nor Spike knew what to make of it, and approached it cautiously.
Is that from Princess Celestia?
Spike asked her.
Is she sending her letters directly through magic now?
I don't think it's from Celestia, Twilight answered.
From
Look, there's
Sombra?
no issue on the seal. She always has that seal in her letters. And it's not like they just run out of them.
Then who's it from?
I don't know.
They both looked at the letter, uncertain if they should even be opening it. It was so unnatural that there was no way of knowing what would happen. Spike scooted his feet closer to it, treating it like he would a bomb. His arm slowly extended to grab it. Twilight watched on while he broke the seal with a claw and unraveled the letter. He opened it very carefully, but it did nothing out of the ordinary. He scanned over the lines with patience, and the contents left him puzzled.
That's strange. I don't think we've ever gotten a letter like this before.
What is it? A threat? Something from Princess Luna? She's never sent me a letter before. Maybe she does it differently than her sister. Or maybe it's from Shining Armor. That would be cool if we were pen pals now.
He says he has a Star Swirl book and he wants you to meet him and take it.
What?
She grabbed the letter with her magic immediately, and she ripped it off so abruptly that Spike left claw marks on the paper by accident.
Oh my goodness! I'm so sorry, Twilight!
It's fine. It's still in one piece.
Then Twilight read the letter for herself. After the first reading, she
Yep,
gasped
from
in
Sombra.
excitement, then tilted her head right after that. She read it again, and gave the same response. Dear Princess Twilight Sparkle, congratulations on your ascension to Princess of Equestria. It is an honor to hold such a title, one that I never thought would happen under Celestia's rule again. I understand you might be busy with your duties, but I would like to write to you for an important matter. You see, I have recently found a book from the great mage Starswirl the Bearded, one that has been lost for centuries, if I recall. It contains knowledge about a topic that has been lost with time, that of dark magic itself. Given the value of it, I cannot afford to give this book to your doorstep myself, in fear that some pony might steal it, and I apologize for the inconvenience. However, if you would come to the stream by the Wispy Woods in the time I have written below, I will happily deliver it to your hooves. I know how suspicious this sounds, but I have no other choice. Thank you for reading this letter as far as you have, and for considering my offer. Signed, Forest Mist.
Forest
That was
Mist.
the strangest letter ever. And I read some pretty
Nice
weird letters from
cover-up
Celestia.
name, Sombra.
Spike commented.
What was that all about?
I don't know. Something strange about this letter, said Twilight. It could be a trap. This Forest Mist sure knew that I was a princess.
But every pony knows that.
I was about to say that.
Yes, but he knows that while he's asking me to come to the Wispy Woods. Do you know what I mean?
Are you thinking it could be a trap?
Yes, that is what I'm assuming. I don't like the looks of it.
So you're not going to see him tonight, like the letter said?
I never said that.
Yeah,
She
he
paused
has
for
a
a
Star
moment,
Swirl the Bearded,
thought
but
about
there's no
everything
way
she
she's
could
not
do about
going.
this Forest Mist character. On one hoof, it was the kind of letter that she would imagine one of her enemies to write if they had half a brain. On the other, if it was true that this was a Star Swirl book lost in time, it was an opportunity she would never pass up. And on top of that, even if it was a trap, her magic had only gotten better, and she could easily face any threat that came her way. Not to mention, she did have 2 royal guards for protection. All of a sudden, it was as if she was at peace with the meeting.
I think I'm going to see Forest Mist tonight.
Are you sure?
Spike questioned.
Maybe you should bring those 2 guards with you, just in case.
I'm planning on it, but I don't want to intimidate Forest Mist either, in case he really means what he said in the letter. So what I'm going to do is have the guards follow me into the woods and stay around half a mile away from the stream. If I need help, I'll shoot a light spell to the sky as a signal that I'm in trouble. That way, in case things do go awry, I'll have a backup plan.
The dragon crossed his arms at the thought.
If you say so.
He picked his broom back up.
It does seem like a good plan.
You think we can have lunch soon? I'm starving.
You know what? I was thinking the same thing.
The next half hour was spent enjoying a couple of sandwiches with Spike, talking about what happened with Celestia all of last week. It was a quiet and enjoyable lunch, and in the end, Twilight voted on just expanding her treehouse a bit to accommodate her future needs. But at the same time, she would spend a good chunk of the day wondering if she had made the right choice. True, the letter seemed straightforward, but it still felt off for reasons she couldn't put her hoof on. Guess she would know if she was right or not that evening.
And that's the end of this first part.
That's a pretty good start. This is just the beginning, and it gets way better, way better as it goes on. Again, thank you, the Sir Heartstrings, for bringing this fic to my attention. It's really good. It's really good, and I'm glad to be reading it. You guys might have noticed that every single royal guard
has the
a
same
Batman
voice. Yeah.
Here's what I decided to do. Every single royal guard will be Batman. Just because it's funny. Because if you guys remember my Who Wants to Live Forever reading, the guard was Batman in that. The guard had the Batman voice in that, and it was.
I think it works. That's how they kind of sound in the show too.
A few of you guys did too, and so I just decided, hey, why not? Batman is officially every single guard in Canterlot. But anyhow, okay, big announcement. Big,
you said you had announcements.
Big announcement. Okay. I have written a fic on FimFiction. If you guys want to get to my FimFic account, I'll have a link in the description, and there's a link to it on my channel banner. So yeah, there's a link to it on my channel banner. You guys can follow me there. But yeah, I wrote a fic recently. It was for if you guys have been following Dr. Cobra and Dashing Knight at all, you guys already know about this.
I don't know who that is. So
it was a fic that was written for them, and they want to collab with me to read it, and I am really, really excited about it. Just so excited to be working with them, and my favorite readers, and I get to be working with them. Yay!
Nice. Good for you.
Yeah, I'm totally fanboying right now. But yeah, I'm gonna work with them soon. I'm gonna be collabing with them soon to read the fic. I'll put a link to the story. I'll put a link to the story in the description, and then a link to my FimFic page so that you guys can follow me is on my channel banner. So you guys can get to my thing that way. So yeah, not really that much else to say. Oh, other than I have 200 subscribers now. Yay!
Nice.
Meaning that the special for 100 and 150 will now have to be combined with 200 because I keep getting.
And now he has 2.7K.
And I can make the special, so I keep having to combine them, and I'm sorry, guys. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. So, but anyhow, I'll have that for you guys soon too.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess that's all for right now. It's good to be back reading after it was after I took so many weeks writing the fic that I'm gonna read with Dr. Cobra and Dashing Knight. So yeah, but anyhow, I will have the next part out soon. So That's all for now. So I will see you guys later. Have a great day, every pony.
You too.
Aw, and I had the
Notable
whole Welcome to
bloopers.
Ponyville Princess Twilight party planned for the day. We were going to play Pin the Tail on the alicorn and have many cakes in a row, and then see if you or
Right, it's
Rainbow
the
Dash
image
was
for the
faster, even
bloopers.
though she says she's the fastest in Equestria.
I don't like that. I don't like the way that sounds. I don't like the way that sounds.
'Cause I love to see you smile, smile, smile. Yes, I do. Okay.
I do the same thing when I voice act
and I had the
characters.
whole Welcome to Ponyville Princess Twilight
Planned for today. Yeah.
Aw, and I had the...
Wait.
Aw, and I had the whole Welcome to Ponyville Princess Twilight planned for today.
Tripped over the word planned again.
Ah, fuck you, Pinky. It tripped me up. Notice this is a recurring theme.
I heard that.
Rainbow Dash said.
Pinky. Pinky, 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 Pinky. Fluttershy.
Okay. Waves of nostalgia hit. Yeah. Waves of nostalgia hit Twilight when she took.
Nostalgia?
Waves of nostalgia hit Twilight when she got a look.
Nostalgia.
When she got to look at the familiar waves and books. Cultures. Yeah. Waves of nostalgia hit Twilight when she got to look at the film. Twilight smiled to herself and knew that.
Oh my god.
Excuse me. Twilight smiled to. Crap. Excuse me. Man.
Okay, so that was the end of Brad the Browncoat Brony's reading, part 1 of Kiss of the Dark. And if you're wondering when this video was made, because he mentioned that he had a 200 subscriber special, this was made in 2014, so 5 years ago. But yeah, I really liked this fanfic reading. Do you want me to do the other parts? The other parts are around an hour long as well, just to let you know. But I am really intrigued by this story. It is really good, like he said. And I'm enjoying it so far. If you guys don't want the rest of it, I can just watch the other parts by myself. Oh yeah, he did say 7, but in the description it says 1 of 6. So I guess he was able to condense some of the chapters into some of the other videos. But yeah, I'll put a link to Brad the Browncoat Brony's channel in the description below. Be sure to check him out. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, give it a like. Also be sure to like my Facebook page and follow me on Twitter, as well as support my Patreon. All three links will be in the description below. And as well as a link to my gaming channel. Be sure to check that out. And subscribe for more. And if you are subscribed or a new subscriber right now, be sure to hit that bell icon so you get notified when I upload videos. This is ViolarulesReacts, signing off. Talk to you later.